I am Luis Juarbe. I was born in the city of Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, of a medium-sized family. After going to school in the metropolitan area, I spent some time working before going into college. In the meantime, I, I also had a period in my life where I went into the army, and that was in when I was 18 years old, and traveled to Korea to join the 65th Infantry Regiment in Incheon.
Okay. So before we get to Korea, I want you to tell me something did you come from a large family? Did any of other brothers or fathers serve in the military?
Yes, I do. I have three brothers and two sisters, and I, my family was a normal, medium-sized family in Puerto Rico. Well, I can't remember anything special about them. They're a normal family, and they 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 were medium-sized in the economics and family. Okay. My father was a salesman who traveled a lot, and that caused our separation from my family nucleus. And after that, we had to go to work and support ourselves, being youth in the youth age. But normally, we had time to complete our studies in the elementary schools before going to college.
But before you went to the army, you were not in college. What was your education up until you entered?
My college education came after the army, and after some work in a private agency.
So before you went to the army, up to what grade had you studied?
High school only.
Okay. So, did you speak English? How well did you speak English before you entered the army?
I spent some time living in the state of Florida, and that also I went to school in Florida, to college in Florida.
But this was after the army, no?
That was after the army.
Okay, so let's start again. Before you entered the army, did you know a lot of English? Did you have problems in the army with English?
Few words only. Just high school.
So explain that in a full sentence.
Well, before going into the army, the English I was fluent in was just normal school English. Nothing good to establish a conversation, a long conversation. So I learned this English I know after the army, after going into college. That's where I learned it.
So did you have trouble in the army with the language?
Not at all. Not at all. All my fellows in the army were Spanish-speaking personnel.
Okay. So what were you doing before you entered the army? Were you studying? Were you working?
I had finished my high school schooling. So I went to the army in March. So I was graduated from high school around that area also. They called me into the army. I was of normal draft. And I went into training in Tortuguero and spent some time in that period before getting into a boat and going direct to Korea.
How old were you when you entered the army, and what year was that? So I need to get an idea of the time and your age and so forth.
I was 18 years old, and the date was 1951. 1951, when I entered the army.
And did you know about the Korean War? What did you know? Did you know anything about Korea? Did you know about the war? Tell us something about that.
I didn't know anything about Korea. Nothing. Just Korea was a new experience for me. Not a good one, but a new experience. So when I like every young soldier in that time, Korea was a place where very far away that I never thought of it anyway. I knew about where Japan was and China was, what Korea was new. Korea was a new world.
Did you have any opinion about the beginning of the Korean War? Was it announced in Puerto Rico? Did they say this is a Korean War? Did you know
Yes.
anything about the politics, what was going on?
No, yes, we knew by the news. We knew that the condition and the things that were going on in Korea, and of course, being young, you knew that you were going to be called into the army sometime. There was a chance that you might get to go to Germany instead of Korea. I was sent to Korea instead.
And how did you feel about the obligatory military service that was applied to Puerto Ricans? No.
Well, I knew that was a duty we have to compare with, and that was like our responsibility to serve in the army also, being American citizens.
So you did not have a problem with that?
I didn't have a problem at all. No.
Okay. You were going to tell us something about your basic training. You said you were sent to Camp Tortuguero, no?
Camp Tortuguero was very hard training. It was 14-month training. And 14 weeks training. No, not 14 months. And it was very hard.
So let's start again and say, it's 14 weeks training.
Mm-hmm.
And when you tell me something about your training, I would like to know whether you felt did it prepare you to go to combat? So tell me about your training.
Okay. We had to go to Korea, and we knew that. So before that, they sent us to Tortuguero for basic training, and it was very hard training. So it was a 14-week training without little liberty of being outside the camp. So after that training, immediately we were put on a boat and sent to travel for the travel to Korea. And that trip took about a month, because we had to make stop in California someplace, and also in Hawaii. And we landed in Korea at night, and it was my first real hard experience, because one of my buddies was killed on my side, and I saw him dying there. Somebody came in, pushed me up, and said, "Get out of here soon." Good. So that was a real bad experience, which I can't forget. Sometimes in my dreams, I see this guy dying there, and it really hurt, and I feel sorry for that all the time. That's my worst experience in the army, because the rest of time in Korea I spent in the front and also in headquarters doing the paper. I was in charge of the regimental paper La Cruz de Malta, which was written and distributed in one day every day on the front lines. That's where I spent most of the time in Korea, front line all the time.
So tell us something about the newspaper.
The newspaper was a single-page paper and we used to tell stories about Puerto Rico for the Puerto Ricans in Korea in the regiment. And also, I try to put some fun in it. I mean, like pictures and funny stories about Puerto Rico and sports, just to keep the soldiers informed and away in their minds the situation that they were living in. Help them in that psychological condition. I think we made a good job.
Tell me how you used to make it back in wartime. How do you publish a newspaper?
Well, in those days, the only thing we had was a mimeography. You used to type the paper, the stories on a piece of paper and copy during the night, and so for the morning mail to go around the companies to distribute it. It was a daily paper. Every day we had to do one.
How many copies did you make?
Oh, one copies, probably 100 or so, to be distributed among the different companies, and that we made that every day for, I will say, maybe 8 or 9 months, daily. I still keep some of the copies because I don't want to lose them. That was many years ago, 65 years ago.
All right, so I want to know what your first impression was of Korea, because you had never been out of the island before, right?
Just to visit in the States.
Okay.
I went to Chicago. Before that, I had been in Chicago, taking some training in art, and that was my other ability besides the high school diploma. That was my only trip outside Puerto Rico before Korea.
So you arrived to Korea, and what is it that you see? What is around you?
Well, Korea, mountains and snow and soldiers everywhere, and hard living. It was a bad experience, really. Korea was something that I don't want to go again, to go through that again in my life. Well, I can now. But it was very hard. Korea, I came to see a city when I went into R&R in Tokyo. That was the first city I saw. Besides that, everything was rural areas and mountains and dead people, and it was hard.
Did you? Many of the veterans have told me that they would see a familiarity, or it would remind them of Puerto Rico and some of the poverty that they saw. Did you feel that when you went over there?
No, I didn't.
No?
No, I did not. I did not.
You did feel like you were in a foreign country.
That was it. Foreign language, foreign country, different people, different looks. The only familiar things you were getting used to was of your company fellows, other soldiers in your environment.
Did you have contacts with some Koreans, the rock soldiers, or some of the villagers?
Just once. One night, I found a Korean enemy soldier in my bunker. He was afraid, and I was afraid. So he looks like any other Korean soldier in the area. So I let him go. And some other Koreans in the area saw that and grabbed him. he was from the north, and he was stealing food, after searching for food. We had that problem every night. They used to come into our lines to steal the food. And I remember when we were in the front that they dropped food from airplanes to us to eat. They ran to grab that also, and we used to shoot them.
So, so they were starving.
Yes. That was very hard. I suppose very hard for them. But there were so many. So many. You keep seeing them everywhere all the time.
So how could you tell who was your friend and who was your enemy?
Hard to tell. They all look alike. Same clothing, same looks. So it was very hard to tell. But anyhow, our side, they were armed, and that's when you can determine by that he was a friendly soldier.
You didn't have, they don't have uniforms?
Yes, they have uniforms, yes. Same color.
Okay, the rock, I don't know if you told me this, when and where you arrived in Korea and what unit you were assigned to, what company, what regiment. Did you say that?
No, but I can tell you now. As soon as I landed in Korea.
Which was when? So I'll start again and give me an idea of date.
Okay. The date, I'm not very sure if I remember that specific date of the landing in Korea. I remember it was at night. And as soon as we landed, it was a real confusing situation with all the firing and people running around. And they pushed a group of us to a secluded area where they pick up. A truck came in and grabbed some of the soldiers and took them to the mountains to where the company was. I arrived at the E company, and I remember the officer in charge was a captain from Arecibo, Lieutenant Manuel Silverio. I remember his name, yes. And he asked me, "What can you do?" I said, "Well, I can do. I'm a soldier. That's all I know." I said, "Well, do you have any special training?" He said, "Yes." "Well, I have a high school diploma." He said, "Okay, you are the radio man." And they put me a radio on my back and learn to use it. Tomorrow you're going on a patrol. And the next morning, I went on a patrol with Lieutenant Vega. The next morning, second day in Korea, in a patrol, at night. After landing in Korea in October of 1951, and I was assigned to the Easy Company in the 65th Infantry Regiment.
And you told me before what your specialty was, that they made you...
All right, being a high school graduate, the company commander, Captain Manuel Silverio, assigned me to be the radio man in the Easy Company, and I was assigned to the 2nd Battalion.
You know that Captain Silverio is still alive.
Really?
Él vive in Florida.
Uh-oh.
He wrote a book.
I want to
I'll give
see.
you his information.
Do you know his address? I want to
Yo
see
lo tengo. I have it. Don't worry. I'll give it to you. All right. So, I already think I asked you what your first impression was of Korea, right? So, can you remember some of the places you were sent to, or some of the, locations of Korea, or something, of the assignments?
It is very hard to know the place where I was sent to, where we were located. Mm-hmm. A few names I can't remember: Chorwon, Seoul, Pong. I don't even know if it's pronounced like that, but a few names in the area were hard to learn. And anyhow, I didn't know where we were going to. Nobody told you. There was nothing like a hotel area where you could. No, it was very hard. I can't remember that.
Do you remember anything about your living conditions, like what food you were eating, or your uniforms, or where you slept, or anything about what your life was as a soldier?
Well, the life was hard, as I told you before. Living conditions were none, I mean, bunkers, and in reserve, just tents with no sanitary conditions, and you had to do everything on the outside. And I spent 3 months without taking a bath. 3 months without taking a bath. I can't remember, December, January, and February. Full 3 months without taking a bath, just washing my mouth. That's it. It was, you were living in snow, so no sweating.
So,
No bad
do you
odors.
remember about el clima? I mean, it would have been impactante for you because that was
Yes,
very
yes.
not like Puerto Rico.
Yes, that was very impact, very different,
What was?
very hard because the climate conditions are so different to Puerto Rico. You had to get to use it. I used to wear heavy clothing all the time just to protect myself from the cold weather. And many times you had to sleep with that all the time also in the ground. No facilities where you were in the front. Once you were moved out to the reserve areas, well, you had cots and more decent conditions, like some heat and good food. At that time, anything was good in food.
Did you write letters to your family? Did you
Yes,
get
I
letters?
did. Even when my family at that time was very small, I used to get mail all the time from them. It took time, but I sometimes I could answer them, but I didn't know how long it took from the mail from Korea to Puerto Rico. The mail was sent to some place in San Francisco, which was the APO area. That's all I know about our mail. But yes, we used to get, everyone used to get, mail was one of the best things you could get in Korea. That would make you very happy to get a few lines from your family, especially from my mother and my father, because they were very worried about what's going on in Korea.
Did they support the war? How did they feel about it? Were they angry that you had to be there?
I don't think they were angry. They knew that was our duty to be there because everyone's duty. And I don't think they were angry for that. They took it like everyone else. Hard for them, but harder for us.
I understand. How were you treated by the officers, the American officers? Well, how were you, what was your impression of them and how they treated the Puerto Rican soldier?
No, we had Puerto Rican officers all the time and native officers and a few American commanders. But once we got our Colonel Cordero Davila, who was one of our regimental commanders, everything was just like we were a separate unit. Spanish was speaking everywhere. I remember one American officer in our area, in our headquarters, by the name of Henderson. And that was about it. The rest were Spanish-speaking officers and soldiers. We were a compact unit, like everything was different outside our company.
Tell me about the 65th.
The 65th was our unit was integrated, and we were like a special group.
The 65th was different than the regular Army unit, right?
The 65th was unique in that we were different because we were Spanish-speaking people. So we felt like in a group, joined together by language, and like that we were more familiar in terms of getting around and knowing the others and their feelings also. So even though the other regimental units, the other division units were different in terms of the language they speak, but we were getting together, but somewhat separated from them because of the language. That communication is a way to be together.
So you think that you were able to function as a unit successfully?
I do think we were able to function as a unit because of our special group of Spanish-speaking people only. So, it happens everywhere. Even when you live in the States and in civilian life, you get together and join in groups, separated. Something like that in the front lines.
All right. I don't know if I asked you about how the weather affected you. Did you go into that about the cold weather? I think you mentioned it already, right?
Yeah, well, I was familiar with that because living in the States before, when I was in Chicago is very cold. And I felt more cold weather in Chicago than in Korea, even though when Chicago was only, I was in Chicago at 8 degrees below zero, and in Korea at 14 degrees below zero. And to me, it was colder in Chicago than Korea. Of course, the clothing has to do a lot with that. In Korea, I had 4 pants, 5 shirts.
All right. So, do you remember what? Well, you were not on the front lines. You were like in the back, right? But do you remember any major battle that you can recall that you really impressed upon you?
No, I don't remember that. I don't remember any major battle at all. I heard about that after leaving Korea, but I never was in a big battle at all. Just normal confrontation in the front lines, but we never crossed each other.
And what was the most memorable experience? And let me explain this. The one that you felt either was the most difficult or the most dangerous or the happiest or the most challenging, the most rewarding memories of your duty that you look today and you say, I still remember that event.
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that.
Yeah.
Because my better memory was when we took the Puerto Rican flag to the front lines. And I was there along with Colonel Cordero, who was taking the flag himself. That was something that we were very proud of it. I remember that. I still remember that many times. And that is my best memory.
All right, you need to explain to the public who may not understand what Puerto Rican flag are you talking about? What's that? You may need to explain the relationship of Puerto Rico with the U.S. That year they got a new flag. You know that, right? All that you have to explain because el público no va a saber eso.
Well, remember that after 1952, we were in 1952 we became a Commonwealth, so we acquired a flag. So that's our symbol. Even though we had the American flag in our areas also, but as a somewhat symbol of having something that you really love, being you were proud of that flag, and taking it to the front lines meant a lot to us. So everyone was very happy when they learned about it, and I can't tell you how proud I was of that. And that being there myself, I mean, that was something special to me.
Why? What did staking a flag in Korea, a Puerto Rican flag in Korea, what did it represent?
Well, it was a symbol, our symbol of unity in the front lines. That was something that here we are. Here we are. We are Puerto Ricans. We are here also as a unit, as a group, fighting for the same things everyone else is fighting on this side of the line. We're part of this.
So, to you, it's just as important as representing the American flag is that you felt it was also important to represent Puerto Rico.
Is that again?
In other words, you are an army, a U.S. Army unit.
Yes.
Really, your flag is the
The
US
American flag, yes.
So, you felt as soldiers that just as important was the Puerto Rico flag, right?
Right. Being different somewhat. It was very important for us to say here we are, and this is our symbol. We know we are under the American flag also, and which is why we were there fighting. But our flag was there joining us in our fight.
Okay, so tell me how long you were in Korea and when the date, more or less, when you came back. So how many months or what the date approximately and when you came back, what date you came back?
Okay, I came back.
You were how long were you there?
I spent 14 months in Korea. And I came back on December 1952. And as soon as I arrived in Puerto Rico, I got, discharged from the army.
And what did you do with the rest of your life?
Went to work. Study, went to school again, and spent my next 30 years working for the government.
I want to know what the impact of the Korean War was in your life. Did it impact you at all? Did you move on? Did you forget about it? Did it impact you at all?
Well, I can tell you that it was hard for me, but I forgot it. I went on as it never happened before. I tried to get that of my life because I never liked being in the army myself. So I was not a soldier. Like many people that they love that kind of life. I was not like that. I served because it was my duty to do it. But as soon as I got out of it, I forgot it, everything. I still keep some of the things on that era, but just to look at them and remember. And I'm proud of them. I have to admit that I'm proud of my service. But I'm not familiar with the army life. That's what I can't take myself. way of living is different. I'm more a civilian myself. I'm a servant in civilian life, not in the military, in any military organization, which is a special way of life.
Did you have troubles, like nightmares or anything like that?
No, I have not.
No?
I have not.
Gracias a Dios.
Everything out of my mind.
That's good. Okay, so I want to know, have you been back to Korea at all?
No.
If you have like a picture in your mind of Korea before, like when you were there during the war, and then after, like how it is now, do you have an opinion? Do you
No,
have-
no, I don't have a picture of how Korea is, and to compare it to what I saw in Korea during the wartime. No, I don't.
So, are you aware of the simultaneous achievement of rapid economic development and democratization, que se es demócrata ahora, after the Korean War? The progress of the country now, que pasó por ese progreso económico, es demócrata comparado al del norte.
Sí.
Are you aware of that at all?
Yes, I'm aware they change a lot. You can see it every day here. Many industrial companies are in around the world, including Puerto Rico, and they're Korean manufacturing. So we are closely related to some of the developments in Korea, as well as in Japan, because they are industrial countries that we don't have that kind of industry in Puerto Rico, so we get to know them by what they do.
So, what, after so many years, what do you think about your participation in the Korean War? And you know something a little bit about what happened to that country because of the Korean War, because of what you did in the Korean War.
I'm not sure. I am not sure what happened in Korea after the war. I know they still separated from the north, and their development is known to us only by the news, but not by knowing what is really there. It's
So, what do you feel about your participation during the Korean War? El legado del
Yes,
soldado,
yeah,
you know, de Korea.
yeah.
What do you think? Do you think, in other words, was it worth it? Do you regret it?
No, I think my participation in the Korean conflict was helpful to them, and I'm happy because I was part of that, and I hope that they ought to still remember our participation, our effort to help them in their fight with the North. So I'm happy for that. Yeah, I think we can. I will be happy to do it again with any other country. Really, if our effort helps them to get better.
And do you think your effort did help them?
Hmm?
You think that your effort did?
I think so. I think our effort did something of that, and because they're still there. They're still a separate country. So they're democratic people now, instead of well, you know, the late news about the North Korean people and their effort in getting their armies reinforced, which is a very something to worry about.
So do you support the reunification of the two Koreas? Because there's some people that believe in that.
I think they should do it. They should do that.
Do what?
Get united and being only one single country, and unify their efforts for a better way of living in both areas. And that should happen everywhere in the world. we are having wars and we're having people killed because people still want to be separated. Even it's something that it's still going everywhere in the world.
It's true. I want to know, in conclusion, is there any last comments or anything you want to say about your experience during the Korean War? Any message you want to give to the public, anyone who watches this?
Okay. I believe that the Korean War was a lesson to us, to everyone in our world, and something that happened because the desire of someone who wanted to get more from others. And that's a conflict everywhere today in the world. I think that the Korean people have learned a lot from the war, and that they should try to get united to prevent more killings and more maybe more suffering among their people. Get to do more things for the world in terms of benefit among everyone in our environment. It's very hard to see people fighting against each other. Families get separated. Even that happens even here in America and in both continents. It's still going on. In Mexico, in South America, and everywhere. Good things that things with Cuba are getting better. That's a good example. The Cuban experience is a good example.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Gracias por su tiempo. Thank you so much.
I'll be happy to